Hello and welcome to Big Weekend here on the Football365 show, brought to you by Paddy Power. I'm your host Mark Smith. I'm here as ever with Sarah Winterburn. It's a big weekend of FA Cup action coming up, whether you like it or not. We're going to be talking about that. We'll also talk about the only Premier League game happening. If you enjoyed the show, don't forget to like and subscribe and press the notification bell so you never miss a show going forward. It's about all the admin done, I think. So this is it. This is Big Weekend brought to you by Paddy Power. Right, Sarah, last weekend it was all about United Liverpool. It's the biggest fixture of the season so far. This weekend it's all about United Liverpool again, isn't it? What will be the differences between this game and the Premier League game?
I'm not sure there'll be too many differences, to be honest, just because I think both teams can't afford not to play their first team again. I mean, we saw Liverpool, even against Aston Villa's kids, play something very close to their first team. And I certainly think against Man United, no one will want to give ground there at all. No one's going to go, do you know what, we're going to rest Mo Salah or we're going to rest Bruno Fernandes, because at the moment there's no chance that either one of those teams wants to throw this away. The psychological advantage, etc. Let's all forget and ignore the fact that Man City are going to win the Premier League and pretend it's all about Liverpool, Man United, because that suits the media narrative. But that neither of them want to throw this away. I think we're going to see a very similar game. I think we're going to see a tight game once again. The sort of game we saw last week where it didn't quite get going. It sort of got going a little bit too late, didn't it? It was almost like Man United realised too late in the game that actually Liverpool were there for the taking. And by the time they'd realised it or acted upon it, sort of time was running out, really.
But I've got a bit of sympathy there because, if Solskjaer does decide to throw a few extra men forward and he then gets caught on the break, which is very likely, he all of a sudden becomes that naive manager who's not mature enough to hack it at that level. So I sort of do understand going for the... No, not maybe going for the draw, but certainly not risking the loss. I think you're right. I think there'll be very few goals in this one again. As part of my Paddy Power four-way accumulator, I'm going to go with under 2.5 goals here. But you know what? I really enjoyed that game last weekend. I know it was 0-0, but it just felt like anything could happen at any second, even though it just didn't. But that's all right. That's football.
That's what lockdown does to you. You get so excited that anything could happen any minute, and nothing ever does. And this is life now. Nothing ever happens, and yet we can just, it might any minute now. It was okay. It wasn't the dull fest that some people made it out to be, but nor was it this absorbing chess match we like to make things. The quality of the Premier League at the moment is not great, and that kind of pretty much exemplified it. A lot of tired players, a lot of tired legs, a lot of tired managers, tired people watching, talking about it now. All of us tired.
I know.
All the time.
I know. Go and have a lie down. You'll be all right. Right, but I think it's fair to say Solskjaer is safe for the foreseeable future. He's really stabilised that club. Another manager who's always mentioned in the same breath as Solskjaer is Frank Lampard. And you know what? This is a huge weekend for Frank Lampard. If he gets there, we don't even know if he's going to be manager this weekend. It's moving so quickly. But Chelsea home to Luton. I don't know. I don't know what to say about this anymore, Sarah. I don't know what to say about Chelsea.
I mean, we've probably got to stop mentioning Frank Lampard in the same breath as Ole Gunnar Solskjaer, because bizarrely it turns out that one of them is quite good at this and the other one really isn't. By the time you watch this, Lampard may have gone, and all indications were, even over the last 2 weeks, were that this was edging closer. Everybody was whispering about it. Everybody was talking about it. He needed to. The minute he was going to mess up properly, and that probably means losing in the FA Cup, or it means dropping so far south of the Champions League places that it becomes inevitable, that Chelsea wanted to get rid, and they've been actively sounding out other managers. What we'll learn this weekend, I don't know. We'll probably learn that Timo Werner can score goals against Luton. That's probably what we're gonna learn again. You would expect them to walk through this, wouldn't you? I mean, even a Chelsea side which utterly lacks cohesion and looks almost chaotic at the back, I don't think they're going to be troubled by Luton in the same way they weren't troubled by Morecambe. And nobody's going to remember Lampard for either beating or losing. Beating Luton, are they? I can't see him being in the job beyond the next month, certainly.
No, I remember when he was under embargo, when Chelsea couldn't sign players, we all said, well, you know what, it might be a blessing in disguise for Lampard. Because a lot of the time, managers, people use their transfers and the recruitment as a stick to beat a manager with. And when you can't make those transfers, all of a sudden you've got less to be attacked for. And actually, he has shown that his transfers haven't been great. They had a pretty free-scoring team last season, which he's added to in all areas for whatever reason, and not really sorted it out at the back. Havertz is a topic for another day. But yeah, it's very difficult. It's very bleak at Chelsea. I am going to go in this game over 3.5 goals, though. They won't all be for Chelsea, but I think there'll be some goals in this one. Right, let's move on. Brentford versus Leicester. two of the most entertaining teams in their respective divisions in this one. I think it's going to be a cracker.
This really could be. I mean, we were all seeing Brentford as this team that's kind of a Premier League side in waiting, I think, because they're displaying all the right attributes. Played football a really lovely way. Leicester, we've been really enjoying them. They're not, I wouldn't say Leicester are particularly easy on the eye, but they are so good at what they do. Incredibly disciplined, incredibly, and this is a Leicester team where Jamie Vardy's not even playing well and not scoring goals, and that's the most encouraging thing about this Leicester side at the moment.
Yeah.
But this could,
goals all over the pitch.
Yeah, exactly. Madison scoring goals, Barnes scoring goals, further back. When Wilfred Ndidi hits one from the edge of the area and it goes off the edge of his foot.
You're toast when that happens.
You know things are going well. But yeah, a trip to Brentford. This is actually one of those that, usually Championship versus Premier League, they hype it up as like, oh, this could be a big shock and everything. But actually, this could be really interesting because a Leicester side that have made changes, and you would expect them to make changes. They're top of the Premier League, or they certainly were. While I'm talking, they were top.
At the time of recording, yeah.
You would expect them to make changes, and they haven't got massive strength in depth. It's quite a drop to sort of Hamza Chowdhury and those kind of players, Kalichi and Icha. So they could be in a very similar level to Brentford this weekend, which it could be a nice one for the neutrals.
Yeah, I do wonder though if Brentford are going to field their strongest team, because yes, they could beat Leicester potentially on any given day, but they are looking to get this promotion, and I do think this is an opportunity to have a week off, give the players a rest. So I just don't know what's going to happen here. However, I do think both teams to score in this one as part of my accumulator. I'm expecting fireworks. If I don't get them, I'll be blaming you personally, Sarah Winterburn. Right, let's move on. Chorley versus Wolves. No one knows what happened in the previous game with Chorley, nor shall we ever talk about it. They beat someone or other, I don't know. But they're playing Wolves. Is it a chance here for further progression in this cup for Chorley, or is this where the road ends?
I think will be where the road ends, but I think there might be some fun first. I think Wolves are having a funny season, aren't they? They're not. Every time you think they might get going, they drop back. They've lost so many players either through injury or through selling them this summer. He's tried to sort of refresh that team, and it isn't quite working yet, is it? And trying a different formation, trying different personnel. Fabio Silva toiling up front on his own. He's not that kind of player at all. It's quite clear that we can see that. I think there'll be some fun.
But he's giving it a go. He's giving it a go, though, isn't he? He's not hiding, Fabio Silva.
I don't think he ever fancied himself.
And he's very young. He's a kid, a child.
Yeah, he does look tiny, doesn't he? There's something. He looks very childlike. It seems odd to think, in place of Raul Jimenez, who's a classic centre forward, a classic target man.
Yeah.
But I think we might see Chorley. I wouldn't be massively surprised to see an early goal, but then see them blown away a bit once Wolves work out that actually, there's several leagues above Chorley, and who the hell would lose to Chorley, hey?
Yeah, all right. We can cut that bit out. Finally, then, we'll talk about the only Premier League game of the weekend. It's Aston Villa, who haven't played since about 2018, versus Newcastle, who seem to be in free fall.
I think we keep talking about Newcastle, don't we? And like I said, Steve Bruce probably saved his job at the moment by there being no fans in St James's Park, because I think if there were, they'd be very, very loud about this. They'd be protesting in their numbers. They're fed up of it. It's utterly, I love Steve Bruce's response to the accusations of defensiveness by going to Arsenal and basically playing every attacker he has, like in a bit of an FU to look, I can play all the attackers. Didn't make any difference. They were still boring. They were still rubbish. It just feels like a massive downward spiral, doesn't it? And the exact opposite to Aston Villa, which is difficult to believe now that Aston Villa finished below Newcastle quite easily in the Premier League last season. And that switch around has happened through some very good recruitment, but also, some good management as well. And I know Newcastle don't have a Jack Grealish, but they do have an Alan St-Maximin. They do have Callum Wilson now. They should be better than
But St-Maximin's been out for a long time now. It's worth pointing that out. He had COVID and struggled a long time. So did Lascelles, only back in recently. But Newcastle look like the team that could get sucked into that relegation battle now.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, it's the longer the season, they will want the season to end as soon as possible, because I think it could be one of those where they might survive, but only because it ends before, if it lasted another month, they would go. I think they definitely look, barring West Brom, I'd say they're the worst team in the Premier League at the moment. Fulham have got a bit of fight about them. Burnley obviously have always got
Sheffield United won a game of football.
Brighton play lovely football regardless of the results, so they think they will do okay in the end. But Newcastle probably the worst, barring West Brom in that division, and like I say, a slightly longer season. Anyway, I reckon Frank Lampard will end up at Newcastle. That's my tip for you.
Oh, wow. That's a big shout. Just a quick one on Villa, though. Villa, I mean, probably my favourite team in the Premier League at the minute. They got my favourite individual in Jack Grealish. They play lovely football. I just think you look at the table and you see how close they are to the other teams and the games in hand. But actually, those games in hand aren't a great thing at the minute because they're going to come thick and fast. They're going to come at a really difficult time, and I think that could really stretch that squad.
And what we don't know about Villa is we don't know the COVID situation behind the scenes. We don't know how many of them. We don't know how many first team players. Yeah. Either this was a brilliant rest for a few of those players, or it's an absolute devastation because half the first team is trying to recover from what can be a debilitating disease. The proof will be the pudding there, won't it? But I think if you want to play anyone when you're feeling a little bit tired or a little bit, I think it's Newcastle at home.
Absolutely right. With that in mind, I'm going with a home win as part of my 4-way Paddy Power accumulator. Right, Sarah, that's all we've got time for this week. Thank you for joining me on the show. Thank you guys at home for watching. This has been... What's this been? Big weekend. It's been big weekend. It's been big weekend on the Football 365 show. Brought to you, of course, by Paddy Power. Until next week, goodbye.
Bye-bye.